Yeah, it's got the hair. Hmm. Okay, Debbie, are you in charge tonight?
I am in charge tonight. We are already live, so whenever you're ready, Judy.
All right, thank you. Welcome to this evening's study session. I'd like to just begin with a special thank you to our principals during National Principals Month. These past 19 months have been exhausting. And I want to thank all of you here tonight for your leadership strength, working with our students, our staff, our families, and the community to make our schools great. So just thank you. Okay, Debbie, do you want to do roll call?
Yes. Director Ray. Director Kelly.
Here.
President Fay.
Here.
Director Levesque.
Here.
Director Rawson.
Here.
Student Advisor Madeline Andrich. Student Advisor Kyle Schroeder.
Here.
Superintendent Sweeting.
Here.
Oh, good. And I'm going to guess that some more people may join us in a couple more minutes. So we'll move on to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. May we have a motion to approve the agenda?
I make a motion, we approve the agenda.
I second.
Thank you. It's been motioned and seconded to approve the agenda. And Madam Secretary?
Director Ray. Director Kelly.
Aye.
President Fay.
Aye.
Director Levesque.
Aye.
Director Rawson.
Aye.
All right, we're moving straight into new business. And before we do that, I just want to do a mention that the board has made new goals ready to be approved for the 21-22 school year. And two of those goals we are going to gain information about tonight as we are updated about our school's improvement efforts and plans. And the board goals that we're looking at are board goal 2, board members will increase their understanding of teaching and learning best practices. And board goal 4, board meetings that include focused conversations to understand what teaching strategies, curriculum, programs, and resources contributed to the gains or losses in student learning. So I'm excited to be here tonight as we increase our understandings. So with that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Carrie Hendrickson-Burke.
Thank you so much. Good evening, President Fay and the board. I'm just going to share my screen really quickly and we'll get this into present mode. We are very excited tonight to share our school improvement plans across the district. We know last year we changed up our system a little bit in the pre-COVID days. We used to have one school improvement presentation per month over the course of the entire year. And we started doing this really in an effort to build understanding of what's happening in our school buildings early over the course of the year so that the board and the community is incredibly well informed across our K-12 system about the intentional efforts that are taken by district and schools working in conjunction together to increase student achievement. So I really like our new system. Just for a quick review, this is our school improvement planning cycle. Mostly what I want to prioritize in this document is that school improvement planning is a process. It's a continuous process. So what you see tonight, or what you will see and hear from principals and assistant principals across our district, is our early stages of school improvement planning, which typically starts in its most formal means during the month of August before kids come back. School improvement teams meet together and talk about last year's data, last year's learnings, and look forward to what the emphasis needs to be within each school as the year begins, even before kids arrive. So even though this says it starts in September, kind of for the new planning, we know because it's a continuous cycle, everything gets blended together. So we are in our early stages to present to you tonight based on this process. Whoops, sorry. All right, as you hear from each of our buildings tonight, there are a couple of things I want you to keep in mind. Like I just said, SIP planning begins in August at the latest, but in truth, SIP planning actually never quite ends. We do want to know that you might see some things a little bit differently tonight. Typically, each school writes SMART goals, which are based on data, and those data tend to be SBAC scores. That's our highest stakes formal testing that we participate in. However, due to COVID impacts, we just have to call a spade a spade. COVID impacted a lot last year and continues to impact this year. One of the impacts you'll see is in the plans, some of the goals will have data attached to them and some are still a little bit in process and will be finalized after we analyze STAR data, which actually testing was completed and wrapped up on October 8th. But we are now in our SBAC testing cycle. And so we have two significant sources of data that we would typically look at differently in the spring, but we did not have that opportunity. We had STAR data from the spring, but really that was our first round with STAR when all kids were back on site. So it was a little bit of a learning curve with that one. Anyways, so SMART goals might be written slightly differently this early in the game. I already talked about school improvement planning being a continuous process. What that means really is that plans can change and evolve and should change and evolve over the course of the year. As we look at STAR data, as we look at SBAC data, as we move, October was always my favorite month as a teacher, right? September is building community and getting to know kids that you're teaching. So fun. And October was when really academics took front and center. Kids are settled and comfortable in classrooms, comfortable with the routine by then, comfortable with getting up early according to the alarm clock for some kids. And so October is a really important month for that hardcore academic focus, which means that we learn a lot about kids during October that we were establishing during the month of September. So one of the other changes that's kind of happened with SIP planning in the last few years is really an emphasis on the fact that goals can carry over multiple years. And so big goals actually probably should carry over for multiple years. When you're looking at schools and our district as a system, deep level change takes time. We are a big system. We're not a big school district, but it's still a big system. And so we want to give honor to the amount of time that some goals take to achieve. And that means some of the goals might look familiar because they were shared last year. It might mean next year when it comes to SIP planning, some of the goals will continue to look familiar as we allow that freedom to carry over goals that take a long time to implement. We know plans are aligned with our strategic plan. Of course, that's our roadmap for success with kids. And the last point I want to share is that once again, we have a universal SIP goal across our K-12 system, which means that in every SIP plan, you will see some variation on this theme. Arlington school staff will increase collective efficacy in Tier 1 instruction by embracing the UDL principles of variability and firm goals with flexible means. That is a lot of words, but really we want to emphasize collective efficacy in terms of building teacher skill and confidence in supporting every child. Tier 1 is that universal tier where we have access to 100% of our students, where no students are pulled out to be served in program. And so that's where we have the greatest impact with our kids. So our emphasis for this year and probably for several years to come is going to be Tier 1. And we're working with the principals from UDL of learner variability. Not a difficult concept. Every child learns differently. Every student learns differently. That's not tough, but we have to plan for variability. And then even though kids learn differently, our goals are the same for all kids in Tier 1, right? We want all kids to reach or exceed grade level standard, which is why I overemphasize the point of goals needing to take multiple years, because this is probably a school district universal goal, for the next 3 to 5 years. Those of us that have been on the UDL planning team know that Katie Novak, sort of the guru in implementing UDL, said this was a 7 to 9 year process in the district that she was a part of. So buckle up, we're going to be here for a while. All right, any questions on this part so far before I turn our principals loose? Okay, all right. Elementary is up first, and so I will turn it over to our elementary team.
Hi, I'm Bob Stoddard. I'm the assistant principal at Kent Prairie Elementary. So what does this look like at the elementary level for our universal SIP goals? By May of 2022, elementary staff will have engaged in meaningful professional development and action steps to increase their collective efficacy in Tier 1 instruction. So our focus with the Tier 1 instruction is going to be embracing the concepts of universal design for learning, the principles, and those 2 areas that we're focused on, as Carrie was saying, is the variability in learning, and then also having firm goals, but flexible means in getting there. Our focus also this year is for Tier 1 for implementing our purposeful people, which is a social, emotional, academic learning curriculum.
All right. My name is Ryan Barcy. I'm the assistant principal at Eagle Creek Elementary. And so with all kids being back full time, these are the 3 areas that we see that kids need the most. So the first being a collaborative and whole child approach, also social emotional learning and support at the Tier 1 level, and then targeted and differentiated instruction for all students at the classroom level. And so all of our SIP action steps this year will align with these 3 areas.
Hi, I'm Jamie Miller, principal at President's Elementary, and I'm going to talk about the Purposeful People curriculum that we are piloting this year. It has a school-wide district focus. It's monthly character traits and celebrations. So we started off the year talking about courage and teaching our kids what courage means, how they can be courageous in different settings. And now we are moving on to respect. And so the curriculum has some really fun lessons throughout. It's a half-an-hour lessons that the teachers are teaching at each grade level. And then there's also like staff challenges that are fun that you can implement. And so this was one we're doing at President's, which is decorate your door with a respect slogan. And so the kids have gotten into that. The Aretha Franklin up at the top, she's got records at the bottom of her now added to the door, and all the kids wrote what they're doing to show respect.
Hello, I'm Sarah Durant, and I'm the assistant principal at Pioneer Elementary. The next area of focus is with professional learning communities, or PLCs. And this is using the cycle of continuous improvement to monitor both math and ELA. And with this cycle, it's using the 4 essential questions for a PLC. The first one is, what are the learning goals? What do we want our students to learn? So really looking at those standards, identifying which ones that we're focusing on, and looking at what all entails in the standard itself. So unpacking those standards. Question number 2, how will we know when students have reached the goal? Well, we're using common formative assessments. So every PLC is developing those assessments and they're giving them in their classrooms and then looking at that data to help drive the instruction for the next 2 questions, which question number 3, what will we do if students have not reached this? So we're going to look at that data and we're going to figure out what areas of the goal students hadn't met and how are we going to set them up for success and really give them all of the things that they need so that they can reach the goal. Question number 4, what if they've already reached the goal? Because we don't want students to be retaught things that they already know. So let's give them enrichment and let's help them be the very best that they can be within each of the standards.
Good evening. I'm Brenda Booth, principal at Pioneer Elementary. And another collective action item across the elementaries is to increase Tier 1 instructional strategies. This is going to be done by our staffs engaging in professional learning and really focusing on the UDL, the Universal Design for Learning, and those principles of variability and firm goals and flexible means. So looking at what are those instructional strategies that allow us to help students all students access the core curriculum. Another focus is with GLAD, getting more of our staff trained with the GLAD strategies that support our EL learners. And we also have access to a program called Elevation where it progress monitors and has some instructional strategies that can be used with EL students. Again, we are going to continue our focus of number talks and also rich mathematical tasks within our classrooms.
So you saw a lot of collective action items that are connected to what Ryan was talking about, or what kids need, right? They need us to be collaborative and working in those PLC cycles. They need that social emotional. We're seeing that most definitely, especially on the playground. They need to know how to play respectfully with each other so that our offices aren't packed with kids at recess and they're actually out enjoying and playing and having fun. So we're super grateful to be piloting the Purposeful People for that reason. And then lastly, just that differentiation, which Brenda was just referring to, you know, those targeted things that we can do within our Tier 1 classroom. At the same time that we have a lot of collective action items, we also most definitely have some school specific things that we don't want to lose traction on or that we're seeing a need for. So for us at Eagle Creek, that means phonetic instruction. We're seeing that kids are really low in that area, especially with the most recent Title App data that we're seeing. We need to be doing some phonetic pieces in addition to our curriculum that targets more of that advanced, higher level reading for meaning and for purpose. Camp Prairie is going to be focusing a little bit on the UDL principle of having a clear learning target. And Pioneer Elementary will continue their work with inclusionary practices. I know the board has heard a lot about that over the years and the success of including life skill students and resource room students in Tier 1 as much as possible. And Presidents has some pretty awesome equity work happening in the building and celebrating all kids and all people. So those are school specific action items that you would also see in addition to the collective ones that we've discussed.
Hi, my name is Lisa Foslin. I'm the assistant principal at Presidents Elementary School. So once we have gathered the data, we've done the work, we need to figure out how we're going to measure our success. So there's several ways that we'll measure success. The first that Carrie already talked about is standardized testing and reporting using the STAR. And as she mentioned, our testing window just closed on the 8th. And so we are just beginning to look at that data that we've collected and make some decisions based on that. We'll take that data to our building SIP teams and work with those leaders to develop the very targeted reading and math goals that will match with our ESSA targets. We're also, I guess you can say, lucky that we get to do the Smarter Balance assessment in the fall as well as in the spring this year. So we are right now working on our fall assessment, and we're hoping that that will give us some good baseline data as well to know where our students ended last year and where we can focus our work so that at the spring assessment, they can score even higher.
All right, so that actually brings us to the end of our presentation. As you could see, we are working really hard as a team. So we wanted to be sure to share with you all of our teammates. And so now my slide is to answer any questions that you might have.
Excellent. I have first and foremost, if that's okay if I start. So I've been here 4 years. I've seen this whole SIP process multiple times. This is by far the best SIP organization presentation I've seen in the 4 years I've been here. So I just wanted to say it from my perspective, it was at the right level. It covered the right topics, and so I really like what everybody has put together here. So first and foremost, wanted to say thank you. My first question is, I'm very excited about the assessments and kind of level setting where we are and acknowledging where we are, certainly academically. And I understand we're going to get that out of the STAR results, et cetera. My question is, from a social emotional perspective, how do we assess where we are, right? From just a data perspective, I know that it's kind of hard to assess that or understand that, but I really would like to know what the behavioral issues are that we're having, and that you said you had some kind of program that at least talked a little bit about that, but how do we assess kind of where the students are from a social emotional perspective? We know that they're going to be behind academically, in larger groups, because of COVID, right? It's a once in 100-year thing, and I wouldn't expect anything to be different. I would expect our SIP program to be different based off of the fact that we are experiencing a 100-year pandemic. But I'm really interested to how we assess the social emotional part in addition to the academic part.
I think that's a really good question. And actually, I've been having to ask myself that for the ESSA grant that some of us are working on. And so for starters, just to explain that the Purposeful People program that we're doing, the staff was trained in August on that, and all teachers in all classrooms are doing one 30 to 45-minute lesson at least a week. And all of us are working on the same character traits, the same activities for the whole district. So we're hoping that there's some impact there. My current, now this is a theory, Mark, and I know that you're more of a numbers guy, so you might have to help me out with this one. But what I was thinking of is doing a questionnaire to my staff, basically about how they're feeling about the social emotional work of their students within the next month or so, and then take another look at that, in a few months. Because you're right, that's really a hard one to quantify, this idea of social emotional health. Yet I do feel like there's a need to attempt to do that. So my theory was to either find something within Purposeful People or create a questionnaire type thing for teachers to see if I could track it that way. And I don't know what my colleagues, if any of them, want to chime in on their thoughts on that.
Well, I was just going to say too, Colleen, that I totally agree. And we have a team that looked at a variety of social emotional curriculums prior to deciding to pilot this one this year. We were rushing the process simply because we knew that students were going to need something. So we knew we couldn't take it through the full adoption process, but we had talked about some ways of monitoring that, both with some student questionnaires and some staff questionnaires. So that's something we need to circle back around to as well. But the other thing that I learned last year when I was kind of putting up some interesting goals on our SIP plan for Eagle Creek was, about self-care and building relationships and things that were really important in the pandemic that weren't necessarily super measurable was, we know if we're doing best practice things that we are going to impact student learning. So we should see student test scores improve. Maybe, we might not be able to attribute that directly, but I think it's going to be certainly an outcome of the work that teachers are doing in their classrooms and that we're doing a whole school elementary wide to really influence character and that social emotional learning.
And Mark, our universal SIP goal, it's a really important question. How do we know if purposeful people is working? But our universal SIP goal is actually built around teacher collective efficacy and teacher skill and confidence in giving them the tools so that they can address the needs that come up. And so purposeful people too, it'll be important to measure purposeful people as both Bethany and Colleen referenced in terms of teacher skill to address student needs. So you'll probably see some perceptual data in there as part of our measure for this.
Well, thank you very much. Like I said, I really think that asking the staff is a great way to, because they're the ones who are in the trenches every day with the people, and they can also compare. I've been teaching this grade for X number of years, and this class is, on a scale of 1 to 5, comparing the last 5 years pre-COVID, they are here, right? So, any kind of numbers that we can kind of just evaluate, I think are going to be really good, because it is going to take multiple years to recover, and it's good to measure at the low, because there's only one place to go, and that's up. So I'm, like I said, very really liked the presentation. Thank you.
I just want to make a comment too, that I appreciated that you have you have form and you have what do I say? Not a curriculum, but you have an emphasis of what overarching you want to do as a district, what all the schools will be promoting and emphasizing. But then I also like that you pulled out what your particular schools were going to work on and emphasize. So I thought that was very strong. And I don't know if it's something with the staff, but obviously you had consensus on what areas you wanted to hone those skills on. So that's great to see. And I myself am a new kindergarten teacher, and I'm looking at a perspective of these children are coming to us with most likely no preschool experience. So I feel like I have to kind of make up right now what maybe they would have gotten in that environment, which is a lot of social, emotional, and structure. And that's coming into the classroom now. And so it's a lot about form, and trying to give myself a little bit of leverage and see, allowance for that time to build that. But I'm guessing that talking to my other colleagues who are more seasoned than myself, they can see what this snapshot now looks like compared to what they're used to having come in the classroom. So it's an interesting time to be a kindergarten teacher.
I'd like to make just a comment, and then I have two specific questions. So I just would like to comment for a moment on my understanding of some of the concepts that you talked about tonight. And as I define rich tasks, I define them as task-based. Getting the chore or the job done is the focus of the task. And we've talked a lot in the past 2 to 3 years about rich tasks. And that's how I'm defining it. And then I'm looking at that versus project-based learning, which is not task-based, but student-based. And it's students' real life, meaningful concerns is the focus. And what project-based learning does is it combines tasks for a relevant purpose. And again, you mentioned tonight purposeful, and project-based learning is that. But project-based learning is UDL. And I think that that's important to understand, because the best part about project-based learning is that teachers don't have to create the projects on their own. In fact, the website, My PBL Works, has 172 different already done projects from K through 12. So I think that looking at UDL, which is the elementary focus, we need to also see how we're combining that with PBL. And I think if we don't, we're missing the boat. And now I do have two specific questions. One is, I know that elementary piloted in 5th grade the San Francisco Unified School District math curriculum this year. So I'm wondering, what did you find the benefits of that curriculum to student learning? And then also, in many of the elementaries, weekly class meetings was an emphasis. And so I'd like to know what you found to the benefits to student learning, specifically social emotional learning, with that emphasis. And I know that that was part of an emphasis with last year also. So those are my two specifics. But I love the presentation. You guys did a great job of getting together and putting it all together.
All right, so the first question, Judy, about San Francisco math is a wait and see question, because we decided, since last year was so strange, that we couldn't really judge that curriculum until we'd had the opportunity to teach it in the classroom for a year. So we have backtracked or gone forward, however you want to look at that, and asked the teachers to go ahead and do that again this year. One of the big things that I noticed is the San Francisco Unified School District came up with this really neat kind of slide version of their curriculum, but it really wasn't nearly as in depth as the actual curriculum itself. And so a lot of teachers went to use the slides last year and, teaching online and trying to figure that out. It just wasn't as good as using the true curriculum. So we've asked them to use that again this year so that we can have a better sense of what it really looks like in the room with the kids, because doing rich tasks online from home, as you know from doing that with your grandkids, is not quite the same as in a classroom kind of a situation. So we're on a redo or a keep doing on the San Francisco piece. I've been enjoying getting into classrooms and seeing teachers, especially now that they've gotten to try out some of it more than once and in person. And I think that while I understand where you're coming from with project-based learning, and definitely we have some areas to go there, I think that the idea of rich tasks, as we talk about it, is more that it's more open-ended, that it's about process rather than product. That kids, the piece we need to really press on with the UDL is that kids should have more than one way of outputting that for us, right? So someone should be able to draw a picture while someone else writes it in a paragraph form kind of a way. But we definitely need to keep pushing on those ideas. That's why we have this goal. The second piece was about, social emotional. So this social emotional curriculum that we've chosen, some teachers are choosing to do class meetings in order to teach that and reinforce that material. But at least in my building, I don't have every teacher doing the class meetings. Quite a few of them do like that as the format. And I would say that a lot of them are utilizing that as a way to practice and reinforce and talk about how things are going. Especially as we have kids cohorted on the playground, it takes a lot more conversation in those kinds of settings to work things through with your classmates. Not sure we have any true number data on that. But I think some teachers find the class meetings to be quite effective.
Judy, I think you should come to Eagle Creek and volunteer in kindergarten during their class meeting, because it started because of Purposeful People Courage Unit, but they do a courage dance. And so if ever I'm having a hard day, I go in, because all those kids are super courageous with their dance moves, and I get to be courageous too, which normally I'm not allowed to dance in any other situation. So it works quite well.
Thank you for the invitation. I would love to come, and as soon as I can, I will. My granddaughter's home with COVID. So when we can get back in there, we would love to. Thanks for the invitation.
Are there any other questions for elementary?
I don't have any questions. I just want to say thank you for sharing what you're all doing, and you guys are awesome. Nice job. And I want to see the courage dance, Bethany. Maybe you could videotape it.
It's pretty fun. I'll videotape it. I'll put it in my bulletin next week.
All right. Last chance for elementary. Thank you so much, team. All right, now we're going to turn it over to Weston and to SVLC to go ahead and share their SIP goals for this year. Carrie, Andrea, take it away.
Hey guys, Andrea here. I don't know who is going to be next up in the slide presentation. Do you know, Debbie?
Remember, you're sharing your own.
Oh, okay. Yep. Yeah. Yep. All right. Give me just a minute. Apologies. Apologies. All right. Can you guys see the Weston slide?
Yes, we can.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So I kept it to 4 slides, only 1 with text and 2 with pictures, because who doesn't love pictures? So let's talk Weston. Our school improvement goals are essentially the same. We've added a new one, and I'll talk about that in the next slide, are essentially the same as they have been since I took over in 2019. Essentially, our goal is that we've got to grow kids, and we need to grow 100% of them in English language arts. We've got to grow them in math, and we've got to grow them in daily attendance. We need them to be coming to school. And by being able to show growth for every single kid, we do that by launching them strong for the 9th graders who start with us, so that we can increase graduation rates. This upcoming year, we added a culture goal to add to kind of our 100% focus on math, English, and student attendance. Basically, we're focused on including enhancements to our school culture and conditions, so that we're optimizing not only the student learning environment, but also better engagements of parents and guardians. So this year alone, some of the things that we are already tackling is, Weston is an iReady school. Sorry, Judy, Weston loves iReady. So we have done the initial screener. We do it 3 times a year. I was able to assess 78 out of 102 of our kids, and I'll talk a little bit more about attendance here in a moment. Reading, 68% of our students are currently 2 or more grade levels behind in reading. In math, 91% of our students are 2 or more grade levels behind. So we know we've got an enormous amount of work that we have to do with reading and math. In terms of attendance, we're currently, while it's better than pandemic levels attendance, Weston's still in I would call it a little bit of an attendance crisis. We're down, averaging about 68% of our kids attending every day. So on any given day, definitely a quarter of the kids are not on campus. And so we are spending a lot of time and effort engaging in practices to help really be intentional about building the culture of attendance at Weston, continue to make it a safe safe and loving place, but a place that kids actually want to come to school. So this little picture collage, you can see in the top right corner, we've installed a hammock garden this year. So at lunchtime, the kids go and grab hammocks and they're hanging out outside. During English class, that they'll be out there with their novels reading. We've refreshed our student headshots that you see when you walk into the building. And again, we're making sure that the kids that we've selected are kids that are representative of all the wide gamut of kiddos that we serve. We've made internal improvements, creating some collaborative learning spaces, and just the building is looking better inside. It's looking cleaner, and the kids appreciate the new furniture and paint. We are the bottom left. I loved it. Was something that found its way to my desk. Our attendance secretary started it for our kids that we are not seeing regularly. She has gone around and made postcards, and every teacher has written the kid a little note, and we're dropping those in the mail. Hey, we miss seeing your face. I took out the name, obviously, to protect it. And then we've launched something called the True North campaign this year. And, we hear a lot about Arlington High School being a character strong school, and that's so important and amazing. And it's something they do really good. When we think about what we do really well at Weston, we help kids on their quest for their true north, reaching the goals that they have set for themselves and becoming the people that they want to be. And it's something that we do a magnificent job of. And so we're being intentional this year about recognizing the growth in the kids that we're seeing find their true north, as well as making it a word and something that they should be proud of. And last but not least, this year we were able to already celebrate a graduation in September. So we're off to a pretty decent start. We had our first cap assembly with 58% of the kids earning cap, which is, 31% earned cap this time last year. So we're definitely on the upswing and making great progress. So Weston High School 2021 through, frankly, 2023, this is what the focus is going to be.
Questions for Andrea?
Andrea, I just wanted to comment that I think all three of those certainly line up very well. I don't see how you can achieve academic progress in the math and ELA if you don't have strong attendance. So. Right. Got to have all three go together. I was curious too. What are your thoughts so far on attendance? Do you find, or have you gotten feedback from students if it is their personal lack of wanting to be in the classroom, or is it family engagement? You're not getting support from family members to support the student being there, or maybe a combination. I was just curious if you can ask the students, hey, we really love when you're here and we miss when you're not. Like,
you would think that I actually planted this question with you. So our book study that we're doing on early release Fridays, we're reading the Teacher's Guide to Tackling Attendance Challenges, and it's got actual hands-on really good ideas. One of the things last Friday that was suggested in the book that we're in the process of doing is a survey of the kids, literally finding out, like, why aren't you here?
Yeah.
And we have the kind of relationship with them that they're going to tell us. My daily conversations are with the kids. They're not afraid to say, Dixon, I just did not want to get out of bed.
Yeah.
Or Dixon, there's a sub at Snow Isle and I don't want to go. So I went and hung out at Walmart, but I'm here for my afternoon classes. So they're going to be honest, but the survey, the sample survey in the book just runs the gamut
Good.
of what could be possible reasons. So we're going to be collecting that and then utilizing that with our MTSS and interventions.
Perfect. Yeah. And I do agree. I think that you have the student body, the type of population that will be giving you pretty straightforward answers, which you can't always say. So good luck with that. I'm curious to see what your feedback will be. And I'm also curious to watch the progress, because I'm double cross fingers for you. I know that when they come, they will make the strides in academic progress for sure. So good luck.
Yeah.
Andrea, I love the hammocks. I'm coming. I want to go into one. I think that's a great idea. But I have to add that what I've learned over the past 4 years from listening to students at our board presentations every single time is that their best learning, what excites them, what engages them more than anything else, is project-based learning. It isn't looking at the iReady test scores, and what their colors are and how they're going up a color or down a color. That ain't it. It's project-based learning. And and not only it is engaging for them, but that addresses the social and emotional needs through cooperation, getting to know each other by working together, building relationships. We don't need, a curriculum that's out in the world that is going to teach children, in a half-hour section how to be socially and emotionally strong. Working together, forming relationships. That's what will happen, and that's what happens in project-based learning. So I just gotta throw that out there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And something, Judy, so when Weston was, when I came over as an assistant principal, we were still talking about being a project-based learning campus. It was beginning to fade, and really where I think the problems came, frankly, stemmed from attendance. There were fantastic PBL projects in place, but the problems were when 30% of the kids miss every day, and it's a 5-day project. It was really hard then for there to be collaboration, on day 3 when 2 of the members had missed a day. And so that just kind of became the thing that made these extended PBL projects attendance is really making it difficult. So there was the lack of enthusiasm kind of as it was waning. But yes, I agree. PBL is authentic and on point for sure.
And you had a question about attendance.
Yes.
I forget what we're calling the new name for the truancy court and the Becca laws and all of that. Is all of that back in play?
Yeah, so they're now Community Engagement Board.
Community Engagement Board, that's the name.
Yeah, and yes, they've relaxed some of it before you would end up in Denny at a truancy hearing. However, at the end of the day, having been a principal who's been through that process pretty regularly, the reality is it's not going to fix it. I mean, by the time that we have gotten to a point that we're asking the courts to help, we just need to continue to be doing things at the site level. I have not found anything past Community Engagement Board to be helpful. Community Engagement Board is the thing that can really turn things around or send them into a system that not much is going to change.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anybody else? All right. Well, thank you guys very much. You're always welcome at Weston, the better of the two high schools. Have a great evening.
Thank you, Andrea. Carrie, are you ready to roll for SVLC?
Yes, Andrea, my friend, just a gentle reminder, there are 3 high schools.
I am so sorry. There are 3 high schools, 5 elementaries, 3 middles.
Thank you so
Carrie,
much.
Carrie, isn't her arrogance just?
It's too much, Dwayne. It's too
It
much.
is too much. It is too much. We'll talk later.
Thank you. Can y'all see my slides?
Nope, we sure can't.
Okay, thank you. Let me work on that. I got so distracted. Oh, shoot.
Debbie, would you double check to make sure Carrie has sharing privileges?
Yes, everyone is allowed to share. Did Andrea get out all the way?
Yep, I think I got it. There we go.
Here they are.
Yay. Okay. Okay, so I am Carrie Marsh, principal of the Stillaguamish Valley Learning Center. And we have a goal that is very similar to the elementary's presentation. It's the same district goal. By May of 2022, Stillaguamish Valley Learning Center staff will have engaged in meaningful professional development and action steps to increase collective efficacy in Tier 1 instruction by embracing the universal design for learning principles of variability and firm goals and with flexible means, and implementing the purposeful people, social, emotional, academic learning curriculum. Our success will be measured by standardized testing and reporting. We use iReady, smarter balanced assessment data once our baselines are collected. Our action steps to go with this goal. We will continue to engage in PLC work. This has continued from last year. The difference this year is the majority of our SVLC staff are now full-time, which gives us more time for PLC work. They were every other week. So now with a PLC time every week, we're grouping into elementary, middle school, and our Arlington Online program teachers. The elementary group has chosen a goal with their PLC work. They're looking at meaningful learning, which is a study we did last year. And they're looking at Tier 1 level instruction strategies. Our middle school team for our on-site kids, we're looking at home learning engagement. That's the work that our kiddos are doing away from school on Monday and Friday. We're looking at ways that we can provide meaningful work for them to do at home and ways that we can increase the completion rate. And our AOP teachers are looking at student engagement, making sure that our students are accessing their work every day or close to every day, and we're offering some different forms of social emotional support. Our second action step is a UDL book study. So as a whole group, we're working on the book UDL Now by Katie Novak. We're going to be doing our book study and monthly meetings during our early release that will begin in November. We're also doing Purposeful People. We're doing it K-8. So like the elementaries, we're implementing mostly in morning meetings and then kind of tied throughout the day. In our middle school, we have a separate class called Stilly Time, where our kids get together in grade level cohorts and are working on the lessons of purposeful people. We're doing a whole group study of meaningful learning. We started last year. One of our colleagues is leading this study and has designed the modules. So we went through the modules of learning what what makes learning meaningful for students. And this year we're focusing in on lesson planning and instructional design. We are doing that as a whole group with our kind of research and learning, and then in our smaller groups for unit design, so that we can have our middle school teachers team up and teach some units together. And then we have a focus of sustainability going through K through 5, where they have lessons focused on that theme this year. Lastly, we're using enrichment curriculum, and this is mostly for our home learning days, so that we can make sure that learning is still individualized when they're on site. Our hope is to do what we don't do at school, what they can do at home. So we don't do worksheets. We don't do too much sitting still, do a lot of group work, cooperative learning. And so at home, we're trying to utilize accelerated reader, read naturally, Freckle, different ways where we can really look at kids' levels and push in different areas to make sure we can get every kid up to grade level learning. Also, that different enrichment curriculum helps to individualize those supports for every student. Any questions or comments?
Carrie, I just really liked that you mentioned that you're combining teachers together, working on focus lessons and unit designs and instruction. Yeah, because more minds working together absolutely create the best that we can get. So yeah, that was exciting to see that and hear that. Thanks for sharing.
Sure.
All right. Thank you so much, Carrie and Andrea. Up next, we have our 2 middle schools and our comprehensive high school, 1 of 3, as we've already learned this evening or been reminded of this evening. So
thank you, Carrie.
Trevor and Leslie and Dwayne and teams, take it away.
Okay, I'll go first if everybody's okay with that.
Have at it.
Okay. Oh, that's the end. Okay. Everybody see my slides okay? Perfect. So we have two goals this year for how they're for our SIP goals. The first one is a continuation of what we started a couple years ago before COVID kind of made us change course last year. And it's continuing our implementation of PBIS, which is positive behavior intervention and supports. So we're really using this as our behavior and social emotional goal. And we brought back Dr. Flint Simonson, professor out of Whitworth, to provide more training. He gave the whole staff training on our days before school, which talked about the impact of a worldwide pandemic on student behavior and specifically how we're receiving students with additional trauma and ACEs. And so he gave us some great insights and strategies to implement this year as we welcome students back and kind of an idea of what behaviors to expect in a year that we have a challenge planning for. We did our behavior walks, which is where we take our school on a relative, I guess it's a tour. Every student goes to every setting of the school, and there they learn the expectations and procedures and routines in the setting that they are occurring. So if we're talking about cafeteria expectations, then we do it in the cafeteria with the students standing right there. Same thing with hallways, bus lane, etc. We are going to utilize our grade level meetings on Fridays to develop tier 2 and tier 3 behavior plans for students who need additional support with behavior modification, or it might be some SVL support, and just a great chance to gather with all the grade level teachers to talk about strategies and tools that'll work for enhancing student behaviors. Our counseling department's going to also provide SVL support. One of our counselors goes in and does mindfulness training with students. She typically targets 7th graders. And so she's been invited into 7th grade math classrooms for a lesson every other week or so to talk about breathing techniques and how to kind of calm and relax and reduce stress for students, which has been very well received from both students and our teachers that have her in the classroom. And then continue our emphasis on positive reinforcement, positive recognition. We have a school-wide goal of 4 positives to 1 negative for every interaction that we have with our students to ensure that we're highlighting all the great things that are happening. So we have a system where we send personalized note cards home to kids that teachers write, and we track which students are receiving those. We do our SOAR awards, which every week a department takes a different one of our SOAR expectations and then talks about which students are exhibiting those. We are going to continue with our raw breakfast. We don't know specifically what that looks like logistical wise, but that's another chance to recognize about 100 kids at the end of the quarter for, again, demonstrating expected behaviors at Howler. Our second goal is the district-wide goal of increasing collective efficacy in UDL. And we are going to use staff meetings to have those conversations. We're also going to use some of our grade level meetings. They're going to be split between behavior and UDL. Have focus conversations during TPEP. So that'll be part of our TPEP process during the pre and post observation process to talk about how we are implementing that into the classroom to make sure that we are doing our best to give our students a wide variety of activities and assignments and entry points into the different standards and skills that we're expecting them to learn. So those are our 2 main goals. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Trevor, Mark Rawson, we heard previously from Dwayne that we've kind of lost our progress of 9th graders on track. We due to COVID, and so I'm interested to know kind of where are we from an assessment perspective of the 8th graders. So come September of next year, where are they as far as being on track and being at a 9.1, or are they going to be at 8.1 or a 7.1? Like, what's the incoming flux? And maybe that's a question for both you and Leslie, but I'm interested to see where are we from a evaluation of our 8th graders.
I mean, they're a little bit behind compared to past years. There's no doubt about that. We're still kind of in the testing phase of getting kids through our ELA and our math. It's we have some of our STAR data for our reading. We have some iReady data that we're looking at for our math. They're behind, not to the extent that we might have anticipated, but yeah, without a doubt, they're behind. The last year is going to have an impact academically on them for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Trevor, maybe I should wait and ask this also for both you and Leslie, but I know that both of the middle schools had the new Ready Math curriculum last year. And yes, it was a tough year, but I'm wondering if you have any results of that, thoughts on that, engagements, teacher engagement, student engagement. How did it go? How do you like that new curriculum?
That's a great question. And we ask our math teachers and they give us the same answer. It's really hard to tell when we're teaching it remotely. I think this year will really give us a much more accurate viewpoint of that curriculum. I mean, and they all say at the same time, we like it. We just don't know what it can fully do because we had to modify it so much to make it over Zoom and to make it an A/B flex schedule. So I think there's positives, but I don't know if we can really with full confidence say, this is great, we're loving it. I think we'll know a lot more at the end of this year.
Thanks. Yeah, good luck with it.
All right, I'm up. All right, Leslie Olson, Post Middle School. I have Paul with me here tonight as well. Our goal is like the others, in order to increase student achievement in all core instructional areas from 21 to 23, will increase collective efficacy on Tier 1 instruction through embracing the UDL principles of variability and firm goals and flexible means. Our action steps We are also doing a staff book study of UDL now and Friday afternoon PD. And I did share with you our slide decks of our PD that we're building and the different lenses that we're using to bolster that in activities. We are developing common Tier 1 strategies across every classroom, looking at academic, social, emotional, and behavioral needs. So we're using all those different lenses, knowing that there's overlap to build common supports. We're having monthly, it's actually becoming much more frequent than monthly, behavior PD on Friday afternoons. We also have our behavior slide deck as well to share with you all if you choose to peruse that. So we are seeing intense social, emotional, and behavior needs at post. And right now, our goal is to focus on giving students social skills and problem solving skills and behavior support in order so students can access instruction. We're using our weekly PLC times, Tuesday afternoons, focused on the UDL implementation and instructional needs. And we are revamping our MTSS system and rebuilding through students of concerns in support of having the lens of academic, social, emotional, and behavioral needs in every classroom, ensuring that every student has Tier 1 and Tier 2, and there's commonalities to support learning. I shared with you, this is kind of our Friday PD plan, just for a lens for you guys to see what it looks like, but we hyperlinked out who's doing what in our design. We plan all of our PD right now is learn some, a practical application or tool I can use tomorrow, and then reflection time, implementation time, and collaboration. So as we approach PD. With our UDL, thinking about the buffet for kids to choose from is our lens of learning. We do have options for project-based duty and collaborative projects. Our teachers definitely have a goal of wanting to have cross-curricular science and math projects, for example, or social studies ELA. But they've also shared that right now, our primary focus is giving students social, emotional, and behavior support so students can access that learning. But it's definitely on the instructional plan of our teams, and we're having that collaboration time to build in those projects and different activities. What's shaping our behavioral response? Every place we've been before. So these are all some of the different pieces that we're using for our PD and combining to meet the need that is in front of us. Post saw an exponential number of kids out due to COVID related things in September. It's definitely skewed our assessment data. So we're still in assessment mode. I have early preliminary things of STAR and iReady, but again, many kids missed assessment windows. Tomorrow we launch our first state assessments for fall, which is WACAS. Next week is ELA, and the following week is math. So we're still, hopefully by the next few weeks, we'll be gathering up some data, and our kids are behind, but I will also share that we're seeing a significant more of discipline and social emotional needs right now, and working on getting those pieces in place and beefed up and supporting our teachers with that. So that's currently where Post is at and what we're doing, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I think you answered all my questions, Leslie. Thank you.
Leslie, I would just make a comment. I liked your whatever screen 3 was, where you kind of broke it out to the hyperlinks for, I'm guessing, different staff or
Yeah, this is for anybody. So, okay. I mean, whether our board wants to see it, whether our cabinet wants to see it, I want it at the fingertips of every one of my staff members. We build together. So although I kind of have templated out where we're going, we constantly each week are assessing the needs and tweaking. Based on last Friday's work, I have altered this Friday's adjusted plan because right now I need to know what my teachers need and what my students need, and that's where our focus is. So we have work we're doing, but we're definitely being responsive to the needs in front of us, and everything overlaps. And that's the nice thing. So even though we're talking about UDL and the principles and behavior in tier 1 and MTSS, it all overlaps. So
Yeah.
how you want it purposely to be connected.
Right. And I notice now I'm looking at the sheet. So you have a plan for each week. The date is on there. So like this is the topic you deal now, something focus study. So I think that's great. And I also really like the piece where I think you mentioned 3 things, but the other part about reflection, that's so important. You remind me of that too, because I know I have to constantly kind of assess in the moment, like what wasn't working, why wasn't it working, and what tools, what can I do differently tomorrow? So I like the real-time response you have. That's absolutely critical because yeah, it's the way you got to do it. So kudos to you and your staff for staying very in the moment and responding as needed.
Thank you.
Thanks, Thank you, Leslie. I just had one question, probably for both you and Trevor. In the past couple of years, both Post and Haller have played and talked about the Richard Elmore's idea of learning walks. And so did that happen at all? Is that still an emphasis that middle school is heading towards?
I think we're a ways away from it at Post, and some of it is coverage. And as we kind of grew and numbers fluctuated this year, I lost some of my common prep times due to needing multiple grade levels. So it's definitely something I've got a lot of experience with through my North Shore time, but I think our structures are still a little ways out from where we're at Post to get to that place of learning walks. But definitely thinking through the PLC and collaboration, it'd definitely be somewhere I'd like to get back to and focused eventually.
Thanks.
All right, if there are no more questions for Leslie, we'll go ahead and move on with Arlington High School. Dwayne, it's all yours.
Oh, man. Oh, saving the best for last. Is that what you just said? The Arlington High School is ready to go. I'll go ahead and share my screen and let me get to my new, there we go. All right, let me find that presentation. Hold on, this thing is in the way. All right, there it is. And I'll go back to the top. All right, can everybody see the screen okay? Presentation there?
We can see it.
Oh, sweet. Thank you, Nikki.
Yeah.
Okay. So at Arlington High School this year, we're fortunate to have our administrative team fully back together in a sense of having all 4 administrators on campus. Intern Michael Moore is coming to us from Weston. So we're very, very lucky that Andrea, was gracious and let him come up and serve his internship with us while Marilee is out. So he'll be presenting some information on our goals this year with regard to our 9th graders, because he's just jumped right in, rolled up his sleeves and started working with them. We have 4 goals at Arlington High School again for this year. Hasn't changed in the 5 years, and there's a reason that going into year 5 that we continue on this pattern. And we'll show you a very simple way for anybody on the board, anyone in the community, any parent, student, anyone that's interested in how is Arlington High School doing with regard to all of these various measures that the OSPI looks at to determine whether or not you're succeeding in the work that is important to every student. Closing gaps, 9th graders on track, grad rates, all those types of things. So we don't have to carve out our own data and try to get it from all these various places in order to give it to you. It's right at our fingertips, and we'll show you exactly where that is. And maybe many of you here on the board already utilize the dashboard, but we're going to walk you through some of that today. So we're going to start with goal number 1, which is all 9th graders on time by this time next year. And so we'll go ahead and let Michael take over for that piece.
Yeah, hey folks, my name is Michael Moore. Like Dwayne said, I am filling in as the freshman administrator while Marilee Herman is out on maternity leave. As you can see in the slide there, it says that 9th grade success is a better predictor of graduation than race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or test scores. So making sure that we launch our 9th graders strong is a very, very important goal for, well, all schools, but Arlington High School as well. So to make sure that we are launching our freshmen strong, we've got what's called Freshman Academy. That's where we've got a targeted identified group of freshmen who maybe have some gaps in their academic histories. And so we pair them with, intentionally pair them with strong teachers, and then also put them into a study lab. There is a dedicated freshman administrator. Typically that's Marilee Herman. I'm filling in for her now. The building as a whole is moving towards full inclusion and co-teaching. It takes a long time to steer a tanker ship, so it's a long-term process. We're working on UDL like the other schools as well. We've got RTI, which is response to intervention meetings, which encompasses 9th graders. We use STAR assessments for progress monitoring to make sure that freshmen are making adequate progress. We've got Link Crew Day, which is freshman orientation, as well as Future Freshman Night, where we bring in future freshmen and their families and welcome them to Arlington High School. And then also, as a whole, Arlington High School has a culture of success. So one very specific example there is when we're talking about freshmen, we're talking about like levels of success rather than levels of failure. It's just kind of a little a shift in perspective to say, hey, we're reaching X number of students, but how can we widen that to, X plus 1 or whatever the example might be. So students who end their 9th grade year on track for graduation are 4 times likely to graduate than those who are off track. So it's definitely an important job.
Thanks, Michael. And our second goal that we have each and every year is building a culture that is welcoming, safe, and healthy for every Eagle. And we utilize an equity lens in everything that we do and all the things that we look at. And so I'm going to turn that over to Alan Boatman. Alan, would you like to go ahead and share?
Hey everybody, how are we all doing tonight? I still haven't mastered it home. I have this big screen facing over here but my camera is here. So if I'm looking here, I don't want you to feel like I'm completely ignoring you. So anyway, I love this goal. I'm excited about the fact that we have done this one year after year, because it really gives us the ability to just be able to just look back where we were 5 years ago and where we are now in terms of painting that culture in our school. As Andrea pointed out earlier, we are a character strong school. We remain firmly entrenched, and we're getting better all the time with that. And I want to just give you an example. October is Patience Month, and with that, the message that is given to kids is that essentially the definition of that is responding with our beliefs rather than our impulses. And I think I can speak for every administrator right now after the last year and a half where we have raised a bunch of feral kids. It has been a real challenge, and we're not immune to it at Arlington High School. But getting the kids to respond with their own beliefs, of which I truly believe we still have the capacity to mold and shape those beliefs, versus their own impulses or immediate feelings. So we're working really hard with that. And then just, every week we have a student character dare. This one this week happens to be to keeping it positive, which is really good going into homecoming. Do not make a negative comment for the entire day. Wouldn't that be something? But it's an example of the things that we work on. I will also say, related to Character Strong, some of our teachers, as in any building, probably do better at this than others, but those who embed these teachings into their weekly lessons are really given our kids a great foundation as we move forward. And so that's a goal for administration, is to continue to work on getting this into just permeating into our culture. But I love that for this week. The three things that we continue to work on: work hard, get involved, and be kind. It's in every publication, everything we do. We talk about every Eagle, and that work continues. The branding of our campus continues. We've given you updates every year. We've had new posters, we've had new banners. We're currently working on still getting a Character Dare wall put together with some things. But the one that is really cool that I want to focus your attention to this year is the See Every Eagle project, which we finally got up and running in May of last year. The Diversity Council, which started in 2019, along with the yearbook staff and ASB leadership, got together. It was the brainchild of one of our diversity students who said, why are we looking at pictures from kids that were here in 2014 or 15 or whatever? And it's like, what a great question. And so those guys put together, with a lot of Dwayne's leadership, ensuring that all photos of every Arlington High School student is inclusive, equitable, and truly representative of the students at Arlington High School. And it's been well received. These posters, pictures are all over our school, and you will see them. You can't miss them. They're in every hallway. They're in every common space. And we've had comments from parents and students. And the beauty of that is it can continually be updated, year after year. Every couple of years we can go through and kind of change that up. Our marginalized groups now have that same representation that all of the kids do. So the character, the culture piece of our school is so important, and I wanted to really highlight some of that. I will tell you, equity remains our lens for all aspects of student learning, every single aspect. Some examples that I cite for you tonight, in terms of resources: the intentional hiring that Arlington High School does, but also Arlington Public Schools as a whole, is so valuable that we're making sure we put the right people in positions. At Arlington High School this year, new security. We're so grateful that the school board has heard us, the cabinet at the district level, allowing us to bring on a second security officer this year. It was important to us that that officer be a woman. It has helped bring really some equitable balance to some of the ways in which we can have conversations with kids and things that we can focus on that maybe we couldn't earlier because, for example, Mark McDougall can't necessarily go into all of the bathrooms in the school, for example. New classrooms coming on board, new procedures. We always are looking at what we do through an equity lens. When we have offhand, I can't think of something, but just, examples of different things we're trying, different policies that we need to look at. How are those impacting all students? In terms of activities and athletics, I know Nikki could speak to this more as the administrator that is kind of the overseer of the activities, but really what I tell kids all the time, and maybe it creates more work for my colleague, I don't know, but they come to me and they ask, why don't we have a club such and such? And I say, why don't you go propose a club? And the bottom line is we have, I don't know, Nikki, you can tell us for sure, but I want to say we have well over 30, 40 clubs in our school, and they just grow, and kids always have the ability. If you want something, just ask. And if it can be done, we'll make it happen. And I think it really speaks to student voice. We just are really listening to our kids. Services, just very quickly. Our CTE program continues to expand under the leadership of Brian Long. It's really good. The RAP program, Snow Isle, new EL programs. This year, Carl Olson, give yourself a pat on the back. You have given us the ability to think outside the box and really look at ways. So anyway, we've brought in a new EL position this year, and give you an example right off the bat of what they're doing. Kim Contreras was able to secure the ability for those kids to enjoy homecoming, which they probably in some cases maybe have never done before, by simply making it happen with a permissions trip form, and we're going to be able to provide transportation to those kids down to the Tulalip Hotel and Casino for our homecoming activities this weekend. Very impressive. I can't believe that we haven't thought of that before, but putting a person in position to be able to help with that. And so that's kind of what I got. I wanted to really highlight those two pieces to that goal number 2. A lot of good stuff happening up in our building.
Thanks, Alan. And when it comes to closing the gaps, this is some of the work that I can't even begin to tell you how proud I am of our staff, of our kids, and the work that we've accomplished together as a complete campus over the last 4 years. We're currently recognized as a school building at Arlington High School, and as a campus by U.S. News and World Report as a nationally ranked for the first time in anybody's memory around here. There was a time where we received a bronze ribbon back in 2016 or 2015, I'm sorry, for being in the top third of the state. But now we are ranked in the top 15% across the country, and that's really saying something. Arlington High School has done a lot of work, making sure that we're very intentional about working with every Eagle. That's not just a saying, it's precisely what we do every single day. And our teachers and staff have really challenged our kids, to focus on being successful beyond Arlington High School. And in order to do that, you got to be successful at Arlington High School. So we're going to take a quick look at closing gaps. Nikki Anderson oversees special education. That's a big part of our gap work that we do, but we're going to also show you data, that may surprise some of you if you haven't seen it, with regard to some of the work that we're doing with all of our kids at AHS. So Nikki, what do you got for us?
Okay, so as far as grad rates go and looking at our gaps, you can see by closing the gaps under our goal 3, Looking at 2017, 63%, and we moved that all the way up close to 90%. So as you, or 93%. So as you start to look at OSPI website and we start to look at 9th grade on track graduation pieces, Dwayne's gonna move around for me to find this. We're gonna look at the trend so you can see it in a graph form. Can you go to 9th grade for me on track?
Sure,
Dwayne?
we can do the 9th grade students on track. So I'm gonna
I was gonna do 9th grade first, but I can do this one first. That's fine.
hang on a second,
So
Nikki.
we start looking at
Nikki. Hey, Nikki.
Yeah.
You're really cutting out. I don't know if that's me or if that's your connection.
Okay, I'm gonna turn off my video in hopes that that helps. Does that help?
Yeah, it appears to have. So,
Okay. Thank you.
everyone, just so you know, this, if you haven't been to the OSPI's report card page and explored all of these things, Nikki's going to walk us through the data that really is utilized, to tell the public and tell the world, including obviously the folks that make the determination about how well we're performing. It's all right here in this section. So 9th grade on track. This is what she wants to talk about now, and I'll pull up the trend data for that. So go ahead, Nikki.
Okay. So as we start looking at our goals and looking at 9th grade success rates and what that looks like, you'll see the trend from 2015 to 17 and our growth all the way up to 18. And then we dip down a little bit. 2020, we're right there in that 81%. We've done a lot of work around making up credits with our summer school, and all the components of meeting with kids and making sure we get them on track for that 9th grade graduation. To be more successful, make sure they have all their credits. So we've worked really hard. You can see that trend in data for our freshmen, and really starting that success over our 5-year goal, and hoping that we continue to grow this goal as we are now post-COVID and everybody back in school and being able to make those connections with kids. We're hoping to see that growth trend continue. You can see it dip down a little bit, but we want to see that continue. Will you go to the graduation tab as well so we can see all kids?
And I'm highlighting down at the bottom for everybody. The 9th graders are considered on track if they passed all credits they attempted in the 9th grade. That is only true of this data from 2017 on. This is when the actual 2017 was the first year that we had the 24 credit mandate actually imposed on graduation for our freshmen. This 2015 and 2016 data is actually really telling the standard got much higher and we still got better. Back then it was 21.5 credits to graduate, and you could be 1.5 credits off track at the end of your freshman year and still be considered on time. So that's just something to keep in mind there. Where do you want to go next, Nikki?
Thank you, Dwayne. To graduation overall.
Graduation overall. Okay.
Yes, see that trend data.
Yep.
So you can see our trend data overall as a school as we look at all students and some of our interventions that we've put in place. And again, as Dwayne talked, the 21.5 credits versus our 24 credits, you can see our data continued to improve for all students. But you can really see our 2020 data and where we decreased by 2% for our graduation rate and how COVID has hit us. So our hope is that as we continue to have our intentional learnings with kids and relationships and continue to build those pieces of every eagle and intervention plans, that we can continue to grow our graduation rate and see our trends start to incline again. So the decline during our COVID time is there. You can see the data right in front of you. It definitely impacted all kids and their graduation rate and how this impacted for this last year. But part of that goal of continuing to make those connections will continue to increase our graduation rate. I want to go to the diversity tab to Wayne.
Okay, so a couple of highlights on the way by. One of the things, we are a high math growth and a high ELA growth school for 2018-19. So that's just recognizing that from prior years, as you saw, as we have started our incline up from those years, our kids have been achieving at higher rates, been succeeding at higher rates, and actually graduating at higher rates. So we love that kind of overall trend. But this is where the rubber meets the road. This is where you're able to break down the data. You go to this diversity report tab, as Nikki indicated. And which one do you want to do first?
I want to go to graduation by demographic.
Okay. Graduation by student demographic. And we hit trend. Okay.
Perfect. So we will start to see where some of our graphs really have come together. And you'll see where we kind of start dropping off on our 2020. And as I start looking at closing gaps in our goals, we really have to start thinking about, you know, how we delivered instruction last year, started to get kids in at the end, but how that impacted some of our students with color, with disability, and what that looked like for them, trying to connect online and connect with our curriculum. So again, Carl Olson, thank you. You've done wonders in working with our students. But as you start at this, 2 or more is what hits a high population. You know, we were pretty darn close. And by 2020, we started to drop off. So part of our goal of closing those gaps is making sure that by having students in the building, we continue to make those relationships and continue to grow with that growth. Can we go to graduation by characteristic? And then to the, yeah, thank you. Okay, so again, we can see a lot of areas.
Sorry about that. I don't know what's happening.
Okay.
Computer's being sensitive. There we go.
The 504, you can see where we've done a really good job of making connections like we have with all students. Our line has stayed steady. We've worked really hard to build relationships. Our counselors have done just a fabulous job with communication between families and teachers and students. And that trend continues to stay the same even through COVID. If you look at students with disabilities, you see in 2019, we were so close at looking at students with disabilities and without disabilities. We were meeting there. And then by 2020, our students didn't have the support maybe that they needed, or connecting with them was a little bit harder, delivering services was more difficult. So 2020, you see our data start to decline. As we start looking into this year and closing gaps, we have more students in general ed classes. We have paraprofessional help in those classes. We have more students in co-taught classes than ever. And so we hope to see that line continue to improve from here with the in-person learning. Very important for us to see that continue to grow with all of these things we're putting in place along with UDL.
Yeah, I think it's very important to note when we look at both our homeless students and our students with disabilities, if you think about trying to deliver at the end of 2020, when we're having that push to graduation and we got pushed out of the building, like literally out of the building and into an online format, we lost some connection clearly with students who we had been succeeding with at a rate very similar, to, our gen ed peers, right? So that is something that is not lost on us. We know that, if you're going to provide services to students in an in-person format, it's a heck of a lot more effective than it is in online learning. And so staying in person is critically important to the success of our students. Where did you want to go next?
The last part is 9th grade on track by program, and then we're going to look at characteristics for 9th graders.
Okay, so 9th grade on track, other student measures. 9th graders on track by demographic.
You could do program. Okay, we can do this one first.
Oh,
okay.
Sorry.
You're good. Nope, you're good. I was looking at program and characteristics, but we can look at demographics too.
Okay. And this one is really telling too. Go ahead.
All right. So as we start to look at, I have to move all my people here. Sorry. As we start to look at all of our students, like I said, 2 or more races. So you can see from 2016, we had a great growth. And then you can see where we dipped down a little bit. We really have done a lot of work. We're still right there with our white students, but you can see where the growth actually went above our white students. And so we want to continue to grow all students, but it's real telling being out of that building, like Dwayne said, for 2020 and the decrease that starts to happen. So seeing that everybody's kind of on that same track, we're pretty equal. But as we start looking at our Hispanic and Latino, you see that's the next race that has decreased. It's below other students with the 2 or more races in the white. And we want to continue to grow that. And that's a work that Carl has worked so hard to make sure that we have somebody EL working directly with our students. She has support staff. And so far, the parents and students, it's just been incredible, the connections that have been made and the supports that she has put in place in classrooms and being able to provide services. She was only 1 period a day. So you can imagine the connection that is being made when she's connecting with students 4 periods a day and then with families 2 periods a day. So she's really making connections not only with kids, but also with their families to be able to see that Hispanic and Latino race move up.
And I think that's another important point to make is when we did enter that online format, it didn't come down terribly much from the prior years, but it definitely is hard. It'll be interesting to see the 2021 data, that comes out in the spring and see exactly what the impact of so much distance learning, because remember 2020 had very little distance learning. Most of it was in person. It's going to be very telling, I would say. And that was one of the big pushes that Carl made with Kim in our building, is to try to get more services for our students where English is a second language. So communicating via online with a language barrier, to add to it, of course, I think we all understand that's going to be incredibly challenging. Did you want to go to
programs?
Yep, programs. 6. And this is our last one that we'll take a look at. We're just kind of walking you guys through some of the things that we look at as a complete team when we're trying to make the decision on whether or not what we're doing is effective or not.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about our English learners. So you can see our English learner trends versus our non-English learner trends. We had a great spike in that 2019, and again, going online may have been the impact that hurt many students in the 2020 school year and decline. So we hope to continue to see that one improve. As we start looking at, can we go down to some of the, thank you. As we start looking at on track for our 9th graders, it's looking good for our 504, just like we saw overall. Our 504 students met right there at 2020. A lot of communication happened, even when we went remote, a lot of home visits, a lot of communication to teachers and with our counselors. So that continued to stay strong for our 504 students. You can see with our students with disabilities, for our 9th grade, 2019, we were right there. And again, you can see the trend for 2020, where we moved down a little bit for those on grade level 9th graders, but we continue to work on things with that to make up credit. And then hopefully we will start to see a rise with our 9th graders being in person this year.
All right. Let me pull this down so I can actually go back to the presentation. Okay. And then our last, I don't know where the graphic went. Oh, there it is. Our last goal, thank you, Nikki, very much for walking us through that. Our last goal, I'll just cover this with you folks, is our UDL collective efficacy, as everyone else talked about, and the elementary staff, our elementary team presented very well. Their alignment is tremendous, and the fact that they're working together. We're very similar in our approach. At the high school level as at the middle school level, with the exception of we're not necessarily doing a book study. What we're doing is we're collaborating with Carrie and the team from Teaching and Learning. She's pulling in Carl and some other presenters to help us introduce elements of variability with UDL, starting with October 29th, as you can see right here. And then we'll continue those sessions on our early release Fridays. We also use our early release PD, for Every Eagle advisory planning. It gives our teachers the opportunity to work on specifically those kids they want to connect with that are in their advisory that they see every week. That is also a relationship builder, SEL type of an approach for supporting every student in your building, because their advisor typically gets that opportunity weekly to touch in with them. We have a lot of things that are also going on Fridays with assemblies and homecoming and all these kinds of things that kind of build in a little bit of a stumbling block for us coming out of the gate, but we'll hit our stride with that here real soon. But UDL is going to be delivered in small chunks, utilizing Teaching and Learning and our administrative team, working with our PLCs and our department chairs to deliver it, to every department, so that we're all on the same page with regard to UDL this year. We will build our collective efficacy of Tier 1 instruction for sure. That's it. Any questions?
Dwayne, this is Mark Rawson. So I appreciate the refresher of the tool set. It's definitely a valuable tool to look at long-term trends. But as you already pointed out, there's only 2 months of COVID in a 18-month process there of showing the numbers. So you have some idea of how many people graduated in May of 2021.
Yep.
So you kind of know what that net new rate is. You probably know how many people failed freshman classes, which if you fail a class in freshman year, you're no longer on track. Now, obviously, you may not know the credit recovery and what's been done over the summer, et cetera, but
we do.
Where are we on the numbers for 2021? I don't want to wait till spring of next year to kind of know what our new graduation rate is and what our new freshman on track is. So
yeah, that's always
what are those numbers?
Okay, so as we come in, that's a great question, Mark. As we go into our mid-year report that you guys will get from us, and that's why I like others have talked about that, right? That we do this multiple times a year. Because we don't want to wait till spring, and we don't. We have some data that we track on our own. And one of them is we knew at the end of the year, and if you remember, the last time we presented to you guys about this, we had about 128 of our freshmen that were off track. And I told you it bounced us all the way back down to where we were in that 68% range back before we started this journey together, right? So
that's what I remembered you saying that's kind of where you were. Not that you didn't know how to fix it because you'd fixed it before, but we were back down to where you were when you started fixing it.
Yeah. So through summer school and other efforts, including mastery-based credit, where a student takes the next class in the series, backfill, those kinds of things that were allowed by OSPI, and show that you have competency in the sophomore level class, that kind of a thing, right? Or you failed first semester, but you didn't fail second semester, those kinds of things. We're now down to 77 of our students being off track. We've recovered quite a few. So we're looking at right about 80% right now. Normally we would be in the 85 to 88% range going into semester one grading. So, so our current sophomores are hanging out in that 80% range still. So we know now when that number comes out for 20, I can't wait to see what they're going to use. I really can't. It'll be very interesting to see, because we've had so much work we had higher summer school numbers than ever. A lot of recovery happened then. And so as these numbers come out, they're going to look low. They're going to be around, my bet is anywhere between 69 and 71%. Is what that report's going to say. And it's going to look like we had this big drop. Yep. Then you're going to see it go right back up because now we're back in person. Fewer kids are going to be falling through on us. We're going to be able to support, students more readily, like we're doing with EL, like we're doing with special ed, et cetera. So I think you're going to see those numbers really jump, go one more calendar year. Yeah.
Well, and also it depends on what Trevor and Leslie are sending you, right? You can only do 1 year's worth of growth. If you get a bunch of ninth graders that are currently at the September of 8th grade, you're going to have tough doing other things, right? You're going to have a tougher road to hoe.
Yeah, you'll see that more in the SBAC though, Mark, than you would in maybe the ninth graders on track, right? Because our teachers, are meeting kids where they're at and trying to get them to where they need to be. So you might have a student take an SBAC who would have gotten a 3, but only got a 2 this time, right? Had they had their complete 8th grade year.
Got it.
But we just took that fall assessment to see where they're at on their 8th grade assessment. So that's it'll be really interesting. And I'm sure Michael's still on here. Michael, do we know how many kids we're still trying to capture from the ELA SBAC?
We had, I want to say it was 908 or 912 students we had to test for the ELA SBAC, and we're under 100 who have yet to complete the test.
Yeah. So we're going to have a nice chunk of data to really see where our 8th graders are, when we get those reports back. So.
All right. Thank you, Dwayne.
Yep.
Any other questions for Dwayne and team?
I just wanted to say thank you for sharing that, the presentation from, I can't remember the name of it now, but I've been there a number of times and I always learn more every time I go to that site and look at those trends and those graphs. So thanks for sharing that.
What's fun to do, Judy? What's fun to do on there? And I do it all the time just because I'm a competitive human being. Throw in another school and compare us. Throw in Lake Stevens, throw in Stanwood, throw in all of them. We're kicking their tails. I just want you to know that. So we're pretty proud of the work that we've done.
Absolutely. I am too. Well done. I wanted to just do a quick shout out for, I read last year's 2021 improvement plan. And I noticed in there, I have to comment on the CTE progress report, the mid-progress report. And it's stated that they're going to continue to develop project-based courses that incorporate rich, authentic tasks where students are able to display personal talents, interests, and express themselves. So thank you to Brian Long for his excellent progress report and what he's looking for. But I just have one quick question to Alan, who mentioned how hard you've all been working at Character Strong and with marginalized students. And are you seeing those marginalized students in more leadership roles or clubs or less discipline? How are we doing with that group in terms of getting them more engaged?
Alan's probably muted. That's my bet. This Zoom stuff is fun.
I saw him on here, but now I don't see his, I don't.
Uh-oh. He may have lost his connection. Okay, so I can do my best to answer that for you, Judy. Looking at our discipline data, to start this year, it's been a challenging year for sure. It's going to be really interesting to look at that. When we have a bigger chunk of time in terms of, more incidents and who's involved and all those kinds of things. But I don't think we're seeing, at least just from an anecdotal perspective, when I think about the incidents that I've either assisted with or entered discipline data on, that it's necessarily any one particular group that stands out more so than the other. I mean, I feel like it's pretty even, and that's the way it's kind of like our achievement data. It's very comparable. There's not a big spike in either our special education students or students of color, versus white students. It's pretty across the board kind of a thing.
Thanks.
In terms of being involved in clubs, activities, and all that, absolutely. We have students of varying backgrounds that are involved in so many different things.
Thanks. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Well, it's appropriate that during National Principals Month, you get a chance to see firsthand how hard they're working, how strategic they're thinking and acting with their staff, even as we recover and bounce forward from a global pandemic. So you'll get a chance to formally approve these plans. The book will be published, I think, somewhere in the general vicinity of December. So that formal approval process is still ahead of us. This was just our snapshot. So thank you so much. Chris, is there anything else?
No, I'm just so proud of, the information shared tonight from just coming from the whole heart and mind. This is a whole person type of approach. We talked a lot about coming from academic, but also social emotional. And it's awesome. I do see Alan down there. You came back, Alan. Did you have some words for us?
Thank you, Fish, for having my back one more time. Judy, I am so sorry. I have no excuses.
Thank you all for outstanding presentation tonight. This was very professionally done by professionals. Yeah, well done. If there's no other thoughts or questions,
Can I just have a second? I just want to say thank you to everybody who presented and for all the hard work that they're doing. I know it's tremendously challenging, and I just really appreciate all the things that you're doing. And it was really fun to see what everybody's doing for their early release Fridays, and to see how they've incorporated that and all the great things that are happening in all the schools. So thank you very much.
I'll move on then to informational items, which the only one I have is our next meeting a week from today, October 25th, same time, same place, probably same people. So we'll look forward to seeing you all again soon. Can I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I move that we adjourn the meeting.
I'll second.
Motion's been made and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Madam Secretary.
Director Kelly,
Aye.
President Fay,
Aye.
Director Levesque,
Aye.
Director Rawson.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Good night.
Good night.